Her husband laughed when he saw her representing herself in court, but his smile didn't last long. The courtroom doors swung open, and there she stood, Keisha Darnell Morrison, clutching a worn leather briefcase that had seen better days, her shoulders squared despite the tremor in her hands. She wore a navy suit from a discount store, the hem slightly frayed, but pressed with care. Her natural hair was pulled back into a neat bun, a few coils escaping to frame her face. She looked small in that vast courtroom, dwarfed by the mahogany panels and the weight of what was about to happen. At the defendant's table sat her husband of 12 years, Damon Cross Morrison, flanked by 3 attorneys in $1,000 suits. When his eyes landed on her, his face split into a wide, mocking grin. He leaned toward his lead counsel, whispered something, and they both chuckled, the sound echoing off the marble floors like daggers. Keisha felt every eye in the room turn toward her, the judgment, the pity, the curiosity. She kept walking, heels clicking steadily against the floor. Each step a small act of defiance. What Damon didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the woman walking into that courtroom wasn't the same one he dismissed, belittled, and betrayed. She had spent 6 months preparing for this moment, and she was about to show him exactly what happened when you underestimated someone who had nothing left to lose. Viewers, before we dive into this incredible story, I need you to do something for me. If you're watching this from Georgia, New York, Manchester, Netherlands, or anywhere else in this beautiful world, drop your location in the comments right now. Let's see how global our community really is. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button because you don't want to miss stories like this. Real stories about real people who refuse to be defeated. The like button is right there too. And trust me, this story deserves it. Now let's get back to the courtroom, where Keisha is about to change everything. The Honorable Judge Patricia Okonkwo entered through the side door, her black robe sweeping behind her as she took her seat at the bench. She was a woman in her late 50s with sharp eyes that had seen every trick, every manipulation, every desperate play in the book. The bailiff called the room to order. All rise for the Honorable Judge Okonkwo, case number 47 CV 2019, Morrison versus Morrison. Petition for dissolution of marriage and equitable distribution of assets. Keisha stood, her briefcase resting on the plaintiff's table. Across the aisle, Damon's legal team rose in synchronized precision, a show of force meant to intimidate. The lead attorney, Gregory Whitmore, was a silver-haired man with a reputation for crushing opposing counsel. He had never lost a divorce case in Harris County. Behind him sat 2 associates, laptops open, files stacked, ready for war. Judge Okonkwo settled into her chair and surveyed the room. Counsel, please state your appearances for the record. Gregory Whitmore stood, buttoning his jacket. Gregory Whitmore of Whitmore and Associates, representing the respondent. Damon Cross Morrison, Your Honor. The judge's eyes shifted to Keisha. And for the petitioner? Keisha rose, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. Keisha Darnell Morrison, Your Honor. Representing myself, proceed. A ripple of whispers moved through the gallery. Damon's grin widened. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, watching her like she was a child playing dress-up. Judge Okonkwo nodded, her expression neutral. Mrs. Morrison, you understand that you have the right to legal counsel? Representing yourself in a case of this complexity is not advisable. I understand, Your Honor, Keisha said clearly, but I choose to proceed on my own behalf. Very well, Mr. Whitmore. You may present your opening statement. Whitmore rose, every movement calculated for maximum impact. He adjusted his tie, walked to the center of the courtroom, and addressed the judge with the smooth confidence of a man who had done this 1,000 times. Your Honor, this is a straightforward case. My client, Mr. Morrison, is a successful entrepreneur who built his business from the ground up. He is the founder and CEO of Crosstech Solutions, a cybersecurity firm valued at $18 million. Throughout their marriage, Mrs. Morrison contributed minimally to the household income. She worked part-time as a bookkeeper, earning modest wages, while my client provided the primary financial support. Now, after 12 years, she seeks to claim half of what he built. This is not equity. This is opportunism. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. We will demonstrate that Mrs. Morrison's contributions to the marriage were negligible and that she has no legal claim to the business or its assets. We ask the court to award her only what is fair under the law, a modest settlement that reflects her actual contribution." He returned to his seat, satisfaction written all over his face. Damon nodded approvingly, his eyes never leaving Keisha. Judge Okonkwo turned to her. "Mrs. Morrison, your opening statement." Keisha stood, gripping the edge of the table for just a moment before releasing it. She walked forward, no notes, no script, just the truth she had lived. "Your Honor, my name is Keisha Morrison, and I was married to Damon Morrison for 12 years. During that time, I didn't just support him, I built him. When he had nothing but an idea scribbled on a napkin, I was the one who used our rent money to buy his first server. When he couldn't afford an office, I cleared out our garage and ran Ethernet cables myself. When he needed someone to answer calls, manage his books, write his proposals, and keep his business alive while he chased investors, I did that. For free. For years." Her voice didn't waver. "I didn't take a salary because he said we needed every dollar to grow the company. I didn't ask for credit because he said it would hurt his credibility with investors. I believed in him. I sacrificed for him. And when his company finally took off, when Crosstech Solutions started making millions, he told me I didn't deserve any of it because my name wasn't on the paperwork." She turned slightly, looking directly at Damon. "He's right about one thing. I was a part-time bookkeeper. But what he didn't tell you is that I was his bookkeeper. I kept his business alive when he was too busy celebrating his success to remember where it came from." The room was silent. Even Whitmore had stopped smiling. Judge Okonkwo leaned forward slightly. "Continue, Mrs. Morrison." Keisha took a breath. "Your Honor, I'm not here to take what isn't mine. I'm here to claim what I earned, and I have the proof." She returned to her table, opened her briefcase, and pulled out a thick folder. "I have 12 years of emails, text messages, bank statements, and business records that show exactly how much I contributed to Crosstech Solutions. I have proof that I was listed as a co-founder in the original business plan. I have proof that my signature is on every major loan document. And I have proof that my husband systematically erased my name from company records 6 months before he filed for divorce." Damon's smile vanished. Whitmore's head snapped toward him, confusion flickering across his face. Keisha placed the folder on the table. "I don't need a fancy lawyer to tell the truth, Your Honor. The documents speak for themselves." Judge Okonkwo's eyes narrowed. "Mr. Whitmore, does your client wish to respond?" Whitmore stood, his smooth demeanor slightly rattled. "Your Honor, we were not made aware of these alleged documents during discovery. That's because your client never asked," Keisha said calmly. "He assumed I didn't have anything. He assumed I was too broken to fight back. He was wrong." The judge raised a hand. "Mrs. Morrison, please refrain from speaking out of turn. Mr. Whitmore, we will address the admissibility of these documents as we proceed. For now, let's move to witness testimony. Mrs. Morrison, do you have witnesses?" "Yes, Your Honor. I call Isaiah Tremaine Wallace to the stand." A man in his mid-30s stood from the gallery. He wore a simple gray suit, his locks tied back neatly. He walked to the stand, was sworn in, and sat down, his gaze steady. Keisha approached. "Mr. Wallace, can you please state your relationship to the defendant?" "I worked for Crosstech Solutions from 2015 to 2021 as a senior network engineer." "And during that time, did you interact with me?" "Yes, ma'am. You were in the office all the time, especially in the early years. You handled the books, managed client communications, even helped with some of the technical documentation." "Did Mr. Morrison ever refer to me in any official capacity?" Isaiah hesitated, glancing at Damon. "He called you his co-founder. At least he did until around 2120. What changed in 2020? He started telling people you were just his wife, that you didn't really work for the company. But those of us who were there from the beginning, we knew better." Whitmore shot to his feet. "Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay." "Overruled," Judge Okonkwo said. "This is testimony about the witness's personal observations. Continue, Mrs. Morrison." Keisha nodded. "Mr. Wallace, do you remember a night in 2016 when the company almost went under?" "Yes, ma'am. We lost a major client and payroll was short. Damon was ready to shut it all down." "What happened?" "You came in with a check, personal funds. You covered 2 months of payroll out of your own savings account. You told him to keep going, that it would work out, and it did. Keisha turned to the judge. That check was for $47,000, Your Honor. Money I had saved from my job, my family, everything I had. I gave it to him because I believed in us. She faced Isaiah again. Thank you, Mr. Wallace. No further questions. Whitmore stood for cross-examination, but his questions fell flat. Isaiah's testimony was consistent, clear, and damaging. When he stepped down, Keisha called her second witness, a former business partner named Camille Renee Booker, who testified that Keisha had been present at every major business meeting in the company's first 5 years. By the time the morning session ended, the tide had shifted. Damon's smug expression had been replaced by something closer to panic. During the recess, Keisha sat alone at her table, reviewing her notes. She didn't look up when she heard footsteps approaching. You're making a mistake. Damon's voice was low, tight. She glanced up. Am I? You think this is going to end well for you? You think embarrassing me in court is going to get you anything? She closed her folder slowly, meeting his eyes. I'm not trying to embarrass you, Damon. I'm trying to get what I'm owed. You're owed nothing. That's what the judge will decide. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. You should have taken the settlement I offered. $50,000 and you walk away. Now you're going to leave here with nothing. She smiled a small, sad smile. You still don't get it, do you? Get what? I already have nothing. You made sure of that when you told me I wasn't good enough, smart enough, valuable enough. You took everything I built with you and called it yours. So no, Damon, I'm not afraid of leaving here with nothing. I've been living with nothing for years. His jaw clenched. You're going to regret this. Maybe, she said softly, but at least I'll regret it on my own terms. He turned and walked away, his expensive shoes clicking against the marble. Keisha watched him go, her hands steady, her resolve unshaken. When court resumed, Judge Okonkwo called for the next phase of testimony. Keisha stood, ready for whatever came next. Across the aisle, Damon whispered urgently to Whitmore, but the confidence that had filled the room that morning was gone. The battle was just beginning, but for the first time in a long time, Keisha Morrison felt like she was exactly where she belonged, fighting for herself and winning. The afternoon session began with a tension that hadn't been there before. The gallery had filled with more spectators, word of the morning's testimony having spread through the courthouse like wildfire. People wanted to see the woman representing herself take on one of the city's most ruthless divorce attorneys. Keisha could feel their eyes on her, but she kept her focus forward. Judge Okonkwo settled into her seat, her expression thoughtful. Mr. Whitmore, you may call your first witness. Whitmore stood, his composure restored during the break. Your Honor, the defense calls Damon Cross Morrison to the stand. Damon rose, buttoning his tailored charcoal suit jacket. He walked to the witness stand with the easy confidence of a man who had given presentations to boardrooms full of investors. He was sworn in, settled into the chair, and smiled politely at the judge. Whitmore began with softballs, establishing Damon's credentials, his business acumen, his rise from humble beginnings to millionaire entrepreneur. Damon spoke smoothly, his voice measured and practiced. I started Crosstech Solutions in 2012 with nothing but a laptop and a dream, he said, looking directly at the judge. I worked 18-hour days, taught myself coding, cold-called potential clients. I built that company from the ground up, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished. And what role did Mrs. Morrison play in the company's founding? Whitmore asked. Damon's expression softened, almost sympathetic. Keisha was supportive, of course. She's my wife. But her involvement was minimal. She helped with some administrative tasks early on, answered a few phone calls, but the technical work, the business development, the investor relations, that was all me. Did she have any formal role in the company? No. She wasn't an employee. She wasn't a partner. She was my wife, and I appreciated her support, but she didn't contribute to the company in any material way. Keisha watched him, her face unreadable. She had heard these lies before, in their kitchen, in their bedroom, during the countless arguments that had led to this moment, but hearing him say them under oath, in front of a judge, felt different. It felt like betrayal crystallized into words. Whitmore continued, Mr. Morrison, Mrs. Morrison has presented testimony suggesting she provided significant financial contributions to the business. Can you address that? Damon nodded. She's referring to a loan she gave me in 2016, $47,000. I was grateful for it at the time, and I paid her back in full within 2 years. With interest. You have documentation of this repayment? Yes, bank transfers all documented. He looked at Keisha, his expression almost pitying. I don't know why she's pretending that was some kind of investment. It was a loan between spouses, nothing more. Whitmore smiled. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. No further questions. Judge Okonkwo turned to Keisha. Mrs. Morrison, your witness. Keisha stood, gathering a small stack of papers from her table. She approached the stand slowly, deliberately. Mr. Morrison, you testified that you paid me back the $47,000 I loaned you in 2016. Is that correct? Yes. With interest? Yes. Can you tell the court what interest rate you used? He hesitated for just a fraction of a second. I believe it was 5% annually. 5%? So on a $47,000 loan over 2 years, that would be approximately $4,700 in interest, making the total repayment around $51,700. Does that sound right? Approximately, yes. Keisha nodded, pulling a document from her stack. Your Honor, I'd like to submit Exhibit A, bank statements from our joint account during 2017 and 2018. She handed copies to the bailiff, who passed them to the judge and Whitmore. Mr. Morrison, can you point to the transaction where you repaid me $51,700? Damon's eyes scanned the pages. It wouldn't be one transaction. It would have been several. Several. Can you point to any of them? His jaw tightened. I don't have those records in front of me right now. That's convenient. Because I do. She pulled out another document. These are statements from your personal business account during the same period. The one you said I had no access to. Except I did, because I was the one reconciling it every month. And there's no record of any repayment. Not a single transfer. Whitmore stood. Objection, Your Honor. Mrs. Morrison is testifying rather than questioning. Sustained. Mrs. Morrison, please phrase your statements as questions. Of course, Your Honor. Keisha turned back to Damon. Did you ever actually repay me that money? I provided for you. The mortgage, the car, the expenses. That's not what I asked. Did you ever repay the $47,000? Our finances were combined. What's mine was yours. So that's a no. His silence was answer enough. Keisha pulled another document. Let's talk about something else. You said I wasn't a co-founder of Crosstech Solutions. Is that correct? That's correct. Then can you explain why your original business plan, filed with the Small Business Administration in 2012, lists me as co-founder and chief financial officer? She handed the document to the bailiff. The courtroom went silent. Whitmore leaned forward, scanning his copy. Judge Okonkwo's eyebrows rose slightly. Damon stared at the paper as if it had betrayed him. I must have listed her for the application. It helped with the loan approval. So you committed fraud. No, you listed me as a co-founder to secure a loan, but now you're saying I was never actually a co-founder. Which is it, Mr. Morrison? Were you lying then, or are you lying now? Whitmore shot up. Objection. Argumentative. Sustained. Mrs. Morrison, rephrase. Keisha took a breath. Mr. Morrison, if I wasn't a co-founder, why did you put my name on legal documents presented to federal authorities? It was a formality. A formality. Let me show you another formality. She pulled out a thick folder. These are emails between you and your first major investor, Julian Cortez. In them, you repeatedly refer to we and our team. You mentioned that Keisha handles all our financials and that she's the backbone of operations. Would you like me to read them aloud, or would you like to acknowledge that I was more than just a supportive wife? Damon's face flushed. You're taking things out of context. Am I? Here's one from March 2014. Julian, I couldn't do this without Keisha. She's kept us solvent when I wanted to give up. She's the real hero here. Did you write that? Yes, but yes or no is sufficient. Did you write that? Yes. Thank you. Keisha returned to her table, retrieved another document. Now let's discuss what happened in 2020. You testified that around that time, you stopped referring to me as a co-founder. Can you tell the court why? Damon shifted in his seat. The company was growing. We were bringing in real executives. It was time to professionalize the operation. Professionalize, interesting word. Is that why you removed my name from the corporate registry? I streamlined the paperwork. You erased me. Her voice was quiet but firm. You went through every document, every filing, every record, and you removed my name. You changed the narrative. You rewrote history. And then 6 months later, you filed for divorce. Isn't that true? I filed for divorce because our marriage wasn't working. Our marriage wasn't working, or I had served my purpose? Whitmore was on his feet again. Objection. Your Honor, Mrs. Morrison is making speeches, not asking questions. Judge Okonkwo looked at Keisha. Mrs. Morrison, I understand your frustration, but please stick to questions. Yes, Your Honor. Keisha composed herself. Mr. Morrison, during our marriage, did I ever sign a prenuptial agreement? No. Did I ever sign away my rights to marital property? No. Did I ever agree in writing or otherwise to forfeit my claim to the business I helped build? You didn't build it. The words came out sharp, defensive. The mask had cracked. You helped. There's a difference. I'm the one who coded the software. I'm the one who pitched investors. I'm the one who grew the company. You were just there. The courtroom went still. Even Whitmore looked uncomfortable. Keisha stepped closer to the stand. Just there, she repeated softly. I was just there when you cried because you thought you'd failed. Just there when you couldn't make payroll, and I covered it with my own money. Just there when you needed someone to believe in you because no one else did. Damon's jaw worked, but he said nothing. I have one more question, Keisha said. When you filed for divorce, you offered me $50,000, a one-time payment to walk away from 12 years of marriage and a company worth $18 million. Do you think that's fair? I think it's generous. Generous. For a woman who gave you everything. You didn't give me everything. You gave me support. That's what spouses do. Keisha nodded slowly, as if something had finally clicked into place. You're right. That is what spouses do. They support each other. They build together. They sacrifice together. And when the success comes, they share it. But that's not what happened here, is it? You took everything we built and called it yours. And when I asked for my fair share, you laughed at me. Just like you laughed at me when you saw me walk into this courtroom. She turned to the judge. No further questions, Your Honor. As she walked back to her table, the silence in the room was deafening. Damon sat rigid in the witness chair, his hands gripping the armrests. Judge Okonkwo watched him for a long moment before speaking. Mr. Morrison, you may step down. He rose unsteadily, returning to his seat next to Whitmore, who immediately began whispering urgently in his ear. The judge looked at the clock. We'll take a 15-minute recess before moving to closing arguments. As the courtroom emptied, Keisha remained at her table, staring down at her hands. They were shaking now, adrenaline finally breaking through. She had done it. She had stood up, spoken her truth, and made him answer for what he'd done. But the hardest part was still ahead. She needed to convince Judge Okonkwo that she deserved more than $50,000. She deserved half, because she had earned it. A bailiff approached. Mrs. Morrison, there's someone here to see you. Keisha looked up. Standing near the gallery entrance was a woman in her 60s, dressed impeccably in a burgundy suit. Her silver hair was styled in elegant twists, and her eyes held a warmth that seemed out of place in the cold courtroom. I'm sorry, Keisha said. Do I know you? The woman smiled. Not yet, but I know you. My name is Yvonne Lisette Baptiste. I'm an attorney, and I've been watching your case. I'd like to offer you my services. Keisha blinked. I can't afford a lawyer. I'm not asking you to pay me, Yvonne said. I'm offering pro bono. What you're doing in there, it's extraordinary, and I'd like to help you finish it. Before Keisha could respond, the bailiff called everyone back. Court was resuming. Yvonne handed her a business card. Think about it. Either way, you're doing incredible work. Keep going. She disappeared into the gallery. Keisha tucked the card into her briefcase and returned to her seat. Judge Okonkwo entered, and Whitmore stood for his closing argument. It was polished, professional, and utterly unconvincing after what had just happened. When it was Keisha's turn, she rose slowly, feeling the weight of every moment that had led to this. Your Honor, I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a woman who spent 12 years building something with the man she loved, only to watch him take credit for all of it. But I'm also a woman who kept receipts, who remembered every email, every conversation, every sacrifice. I didn't come here for revenge. I came here for justice, and I'm asking you to give me what I've earned. Not as a favor, not as sympathy, but because it's the law. Texas is a community property state. What we built together belongs to both of us. I kept the business alive when it was failing. I invested my own money when no one else would. I sacrificed my career, my savings, and my dignity to help him succeed. And now that the success is here, I'm not asking for it all. I'm asking for my half. She paused. I know what it looks like. A woman with no lawyer going up against a millionaire and his legal team. But the truth doesn't care how much money you have. And today, the truth is on my side. She sat down. The courtroom was silent. Judge Okonkwo reviewed her notes for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she looked up. This case will require careful consideration of the evidence presented. I'm ordering both parties to submit additional financial documents within 10 days. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks for my final ruling. Court is adjourned. The gavel fell, and it was over. For now. As Keisha gathered her things, she caught Damon's eye across the room. His smile was gone, replaced by something colder. But for the first time in years, she didn't feel afraid of him. She felt free. The 2 weeks that followed were the longest of Keisha's life. She spent every evening in her small apartment, surrounded by documents, spreadsheets, and the evidence of a marriage that had been both her greatest dream and her deepest wound. Her apartment was modest, a one-bedroom in a neighborhood that had seen better days. After Damon filed for divorce, he'd kept the house, the cars, everything. She was left with what she could carry and a determination that burned brighter than any anger. On the 8th day, as she was organizing the final batch of financial records, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello? Mrs. Morrison, this is Yvonne Baptiste. We met briefly at the courthouse. Keisha sat up straighter. Ms. Baptiste? I remember. I wanted to follow up on my offer. I've been reviewing publicly available information about your case, and I believe I can help strengthen your position before the final hearing. May I take you to dinner? No obligations. Keisha hesitated. Pride had kept her going this far, but pride was also exhausting. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. Because 20 years ago, I was you, Yvonne said simply. I represented myself in a divorce against a man who tried to erase everything I'd built. I won, but barely. I became a lawyer because I never wanted another woman to fight that battle alone. So, dinner? Keisha closed her eyes, feeling the weight lift slightly. Okay, when? They met at a small Ethiopian restaurant in Midtown, the kind of place with rich smells and low lighting that made conversation feel safe. Yvonne arrived first, already seated, 2 glasses of water on the table. When Keisha slid into the booth, Yvonne smiled warmly. You look exhausted. I am, Keisha admitted, but I can't stop now. You don't have to stop. You just need better ammunition. Yvonne pulled out a tablet. I've been doing some digging, legally, of course. Your husband's company has some interesting financial structures, offshore accounts, delayed stock options, deferred compensation, classic wealth-hiding tactics. Keisha leaned forward. I knew he was hiding something, but I couldn't figure out where. That's because he's good at it, but he's not perfect. Yvonne swiped through several documents. There's a shell company registered in Delaware under a different name. Guess whose signature is on the formation documents? His? And guess who was listed as a beneficiary until it was quietly amended last year? Keisha's heart raced. Me? Bingo. He tried to erase you from this too, but he forgot that amendments leave a trail. If we present this to Judge Okonkwo, it proves a pattern of deliberate concealment. That's big. For the first time in weeks, Keisha felt something like hope. What do I have to do? Let me file a motion to join your case as co-counsel. It won't undermine what you've done. If anything, it shows the judge you're serious and organized. Then we bury him in evidence he didn't think you had." Keisha studied the woman across from her, this stranger who had appeared like an answer to a prayer she hadn't known how to voice. "Why are you really doing this?" Yvonne set down the tablet and met her eyes. "Because women like us, black women, we're told to be grateful for scraps. We're told to smile and accept whatever the system gives us, because fighting back is too hard, too risky, too loud. I'm tired of that narrative. You walked into that courtroom alone, and you made a millionaire sweat. That's power, Keisha, and I want to make sure you win." Keisha's throat tightened. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when we take him for everything he owes you." They spent the next 2 hours going over strategy, documents, and the arguments Yvonne would present. By the time they left the restaurant, Keisha felt something she hadn't felt in years, like she wasn't alone. The motion was filed the next morning. Whitmore tried to block it, arguing that allowing new counsel at this stage was prejudicial to his client. Judge Okonkwo denied the motion to block within hours. The final hearing was set for the following Monday. When that Monday arrived, the courtroom was packed. Word had spread through legal circles, social media, and local news. The woman representing herself against her millionaire ex-husband had become a story people wanted to follow. Camera crews waited outside. Inside, Keisha sat at the plaintiff's table with Yvonne beside her. Across the aisle, Damon sat stone-faced, flanked by Whitmore and his team. But something had changed. The smugness was gone, replaced by a tight anxiety that showed in the way he gripped the armrest, the way his eyes darted toward the evidence Yvonne was arranging on the table. Judge Okonkwo entered, and the room rose. She wasted no time. "Counselors, I've reviewed the additional documents submitted by both parties. Ms. Baptiste, I understand you've joined as co-counsel for Mrs. Morrison?" "Yes, Your Honor," Yvonne said, standing. "With your permission, I'd like to present supplemental evidence that directly addresses the court's concerns about asset distribution." "Proceed." Yvonne approached the bench with a folder. "Your Honor, we've uncovered evidence that Mr. Morrison established a Delaware limited liability company, Cross Holdings LLC, in 2018. This entity holds approximately $4 million in assets, including stock options, real estate investments, and deferred income from Crosstech Solutions. Mrs. Morrison was originally listed as a 50% beneficiary. However, in September of last year, 6 months before Mr. Morrison filed for divorce, her name was removed from all documents. She handed the judge a stack of papers. "These are the original formation documents, the amendment removing her name, and communications between Mr. Morrison and his financial advisors discussing the need to protect assets from potential future claims." Judge Okonkwo studied the documents, her expression unreadable. "Mr. Whitmore, does your client wish to respond?" Whitmore stood, but his usual confidence had evaporated. "Your Honor, Cross Holdings is a separate legal entity established for legitimate business purposes. Any changes to beneficiary status were made in accordance with Mr. Morrison's estate planning." "Estate planning," Yvonne repeated. "Your Honor, my client is 43 years old and in perfect health. This wasn't estate planning. This was divorce planning. He systematically removed her from every asset, every account, every record, and then filed for divorce once the erasure was complete. This is textbook financial fraud in anticipation of dissolution." The judge set down the papers. "Mr. Morrison, please take the stand." Damon's face went pale. Whitmore leaned over, whispering urgently, but Damon stood and walked to the witness box. He was sworn in again, his hand trembling slightly. Judge Okonkwo looked at him directly. "Mr. Morrison, did you remove your wife's name from Cross Holdings LLC in anticipation of filing for divorce?" "No, Your Honor. I was reorganizing my estate." "Were you aware that removing a spouse from jointly acquired assets during a marriage can be construed as fraud?" I wasn't trying to defraud anyone. I was protecting what I built." "What you built," the judge repeated slowly. "Mr. Morrison, I've now heard hours of testimony, reviewed hundreds of documents, and listened to your explanations. And I have to tell you, I'm not convinced. Mrs. Morrison has presented compelling evidence that she was instrumental in the founding and operation of Crosstech Solutions. She's shown that you systematically erased her contributions, concealed assets, and misrepresented the nature of her involvement. Do you have anything to say that would change my assessment? Damon opened his mouth, closed it. His lawyer looked stricken. Your Honor, I just wanted what was fair. Fair, Judge Okonkwo said. Let me tell you what I think is fair. Mrs. Morrison gave you 12 years of her life. She invested her money, her time, and her faith in you. She sacrificed her career to build yours. And when your success came, you offered her $50,000 and told her to disappear. That, Mr. Morrison, is not fair. That's theft. She turned to Keisha. Mrs. Morrison, I want to commend you. Representing yourself in a case of this complexity took courage, intelligence, and meticulous preparation. You've presented your case with dignity and precision. It's been an honor to witness 3:18 p.m. Keisha felt tears prick her eyes but held them back. Judge Okonkwo continued, based on the evidence presented, I am ruling in favor of the petitioner. Mrs. Morrison is entitled to 50% of all marital assets, including Crosstech Solutions, Cross Holdings LLC, real estate holdings, retirement accounts, and any other assets acquired during the marriage. Mr. Morrison, you will provide a full accounting of all assets within 30 days. Any attempts to conceal, transfer, or diminish those assets will result in contempt charges and potential criminal prosecution. Additionally, Mrs. Morrison is awarded $200,000 in attorney fees and costs to be paid by Mr. Morrison within 60 days. This case is closed. The gavel fell. For a moment, the courtroom was silent. Then a ripple of applause started in the gallery, growing until the bailiff called for order. Keisha sat frozen, her hands shaking. Yvonne placed a hand on her shoulder, smiling through her own tears. You did it, she whispered. We did it. Across the aisle, Damon sat slumped, his face ashen. Whitmore was already packing his briefcase, the case lost, his reputation damaged. As people filed out, reporters waited in the hallway. Keisha stepped into the corridor and microphones appeared. Mrs. Morrison, how do you feel? What message do you have for other women in your situation? Do you think justice was served? She looked at the cameras, at the faces, and took a breath. I think justice is never easy, but it's always worth fighting for. If you're out there and someone is trying to erase you, trying to take what you've earned and call it theirs, don't let them. Keep your records. Tell your truth. And know that you're not alone. The questions continued, but Yvonne gently guided her away. Outside, the afternoon sun felt warmer than it had in months. Keisha stood on the courthouse steps, breathing in the air, feeling lighter than she had in years. Her phone buzzed. A text from her sister. I'm so proud of you. Another from Isaiah, her witness. You're a legend. And one from a number she didn't recognize. You taught me to fight. Thank you. She smiled, slipping the phone into her pocket. Yvonne stood beside her, arms crossed, looking satisfied. So what's next? Keisha thought about it. The apartment she'd return to, the life she'd have to rebuild, the money that would finally allow her to breathe. I think I'm going to take some time, figure out who I am outside of being his wife. Maybe go back to school, maybe start my own business. I don't know yet. You've got options now, Yvonne said. That's a beautiful thing. It is. They stood together in the sunlight, two women who had fought the same battle in different times, connected by their refusal to be erased. Behind them, Damon exited the courthouse, flanked by his attorneys. He glanced at Keisha, and for a moment their eyes met. There was no anger in her gaze, no triumph, just clarity. He looked away first, disappearing into a waiting car. Keisha watched him go, feeling nothing but relief. That night, alone in her apartment, she opened a bottle of sparkling cider and poured herself a glass. She raised it to the empty room, to the woman she'd been and the woman she was becoming. To new beginnings, she whispered, and for the first time in a long time, she believed it. Months later, Keisha stood in front of a new office space in downtown Atlanta. The sign above the door read, Morrison Financial Consulting, Empowering Women in Business. Yvonne stood beside her, grinning. You sure you're ready for this? Keisha nodded. I've been ready my whole life. I just didn't know it. Inside, the walls were painted a warm gold. Desks waited to be filled. A small team of women she'd hired, women who had their own stories of being overlooked, underpaid and underestimated, were setting up computers and answering phones. She had taken her settlement, invested wisely, and built something that was entirely hers. Something no one could take away. Her phone rang. She glanced at the screen. Unknown number. She answered. Keisha Morrison. Mrs. Morrison, this is a reporter from Forbes. We're doing a feature on women entrepreneurs who've overcome significant obstacles. We'd love to interview you. She smiled. I'd be honored. As she hung up, she looked around the office, at the dream taking shape. Damon had tried to erase her, but she had rewritten the story. And this time, she was the author. Viewers, Keisha's story reminds us that your worth isn't defined by who acknowledges it. It's defined by the truth you carry and the courage you have to fight for it. If this story moved you, drop a comment and let me know what you think. Does Keisha deserve everything she fought for? What would you have done in her place? And don't forget to subscribe, because every week we bring you stories of real people who refuse to give up. Stories that inspire, challenge, and remind us that justice is always worth the fight. See you in the next one.